Alright, so we have 3 scriptures for this week. So here's the first. We're going to be in Job 1, 1 to 4. I'm using ESV, but you can use whichever version that you would like. Alright, we're going to pick up starting at verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters. He possessed 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys, and very many servants, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the east. His sons used to go and hold a feast in the house of each one on his day, and they would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. Alright, so that's the first. We're going to go ahead with the second. We're going to be in Job 1, 11 through 22. I'll give you a second to get there. Alright, picking up at verse 11. But reach out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, Behold, all that he has in your hand, only against him do not stretch out your hand. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And there came a messenger to Job and said, The oxen were plowing, and the donkeys feeding beside them, and the Sabines fell upon them, and took them, and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword. And I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came up another, and he said, The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. And I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came another servant and said, The Chaldeans formed 3 groups and made a raid on the camels and took them and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword. And I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and behold, a great wind came across the wilderness, and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young people, and they are all dead, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Then Job rose, and tore his robe, and shaved his head, and fell to his knees to praise. And he said, Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrong. Alright, now we're going to move on to our third. We're going to be in Job 10. Oop, slipped there. Sorry about that. Job 10, 6 through 17. Again, I'm using ESV, but whatever you feel comfortable using is fine. Alright, picking up in verse 6. That you seek my iniquity and search for my sin, although you know that I am not guilty, and there was none to deliver out of your hand. Your hands fashioned and made me, and now you have destroyed me altogether. Remember that you have made me like clay, and will you return me to the dust? Did you not pour me out like milk, and curdle me like cheese? You clothed me with skin and flesh, and knit me together with bones and sinews. You have granted me life and steadfast love, and your care has preserved my spirit. Yet these things you hid in your heart. I know that this was your purpose. If I sin, you watch me, and do not acquit me of my iniquity. If I am guilty, woe to me. I am in the right. I cannot lift up my head, for I am filled with disgrace, and look on my affliction. And were my head lifted up, you would hunt me like a lion against work wonders against me. You renew your witness against me and increase your vexation toward me. You bring fresh troops against me. Alright, now let's go ahead and talk about it. Okay, so the first topic that I'd like to cover today is that Job had it all. But let's go to the basics of Job first. Alright, well, to start off, his name was Job. Bump, bump. Yeah, that was like the worst joke I've ever come up with. Anyway, Job was from Uz. So let's talk about some characteristics of him. Now, in our scripture reading, I found these 3 characteristics, and I got them from verses from Job 1 through 3. And the characteristics that I found were that he was blameless, he was upright, and he turned away from evil. Now, if you've read the book of Job, you know that that sounds a lot like what you read. Well, that's not all he had going for him. He also had 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and he had many servants. Now, believe it or not, the rich dude was a family man. I like to assume that he was married, but some people might have a difference in opinion on that. But I like to assume he was married anyway. But Job, he had 10 kids. And out of those kids, 7 of them were boys, and then 3 were girls. Now, I choose to believe that he had more kids because most people back then had more than 10 kids. I just learned that from when we do Bible studies in the morning. Because if you don't know, I'm homeschooled, so we do Bible stories around the kitchen table every morning right after breakfast. So that's what I take away from that, that reading this makes me think that he had more children, but the Bible just did not mention it. So I have a verse that I think fits quite well in this topic because Job was rich. And there's something I want you to understand that I'll tell you right after. So, I'm in 1 Samuel. We'll be in 1 Samuel 2:7. Again, I'm using ESV, but you can use whatever you like. Alright, so picking up in verse 7. The Lord makes poor, and he makes rich. He brings low, and he exalts. Now, before I go into what I think, I cannot stress this enough. This is my opinion, okay? You might have a difference in opinion or might have taken something else away from this. Totally fine. Leave below in the comments what you took away from it. But this is just my opinion. So, I take away from this that no matter if you're poor or if you're rich, or I'll even throw another one in there. If you're middle class, God made you that way, and he actually exalts you. Now, one thing I did want to mention is that the Bible mentions a lot about his steadfast love. He loved the world so much. He loves you so much that he would die for you. But this was the first thing that I've come across that said he exalts you. Now, for those of you younger ones who are watching this and don't know what exalt means, it means to make high, to speak highly of. So, to think that he does that to us, that's pretty cool. Now, one thing that we have to remember is that we need to also exalt him. Now, how can I relate this to Job? Well, it's actually pretty easy. He didn't get rich on his own circumstances. He realized that, too, by the way. He didn't get rich on his circumstances. Think about it. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, Will and Kate. Well, they got the throne. They're going to get the throne through their family history. But the family history didn't get it under their own circumstances. They got it from God. I mean, if Diana had not had any children, then nobody would have been able to take the throne after that. That I can think of. I'm still... What's the word I'm looking for? Not completely familiar with how the monarchy thing works. So, is that bad? Let me know in the comments if that's bad. And anyway, so they didn't get the throne under their own circumstances. It was God who allowed them to get the throne. Just like it wasn't Job who got rich by himself. It was God who allowed Job to get rich. And Job understood that and understood that it was God's plan for him to get rich. And now speaking about him being rich, that brings us right to our second point.
Okay, so my next point. It's all gone. Sit on this sit on this because it's really windy, but the name of the next one is It's All Gone Like That. I wanted to do like It's All Gone Like That, but it turns out, well, let me explain something to you. I'm trying to make these videos as fun as possible, so I added emojis, as you can probably tell. Well, it turns out that I could not find an emoji that snaps, so I ended up just doing normal claps. Same thing, right? So, we see that Job is falling apart, but yet he stays faithful. Well, I have part of a song that I want you to hear that kind of gives a rundown of Job. I think that adding on to I want to make these videos as fun as I can, I honestly think that this will be fun because it's like very different. So, the song is called Count Your Blessings, and it's just the first chorus. At the end, it's how do I want to do this? Actually, you know what? I'll have the website right here or somewhere on the screen, and also linked down below, so you can go and get the group called Mercy's Cross CD. It's called A Decade Together, and it's track 4 on there. So go get that if you enjoyed the first part of the song. So enjoy.
Friends and money, loved the Lord with all his heart. So the devil went to God and said, oh, Job would fall apart if you would take away his fortune. Let me put him to the test. Soon poor Job had lost his health and wealth and all the rest. And as his troubles added up, he fell down on his knees and said, Lord, I still got one thing, and that's your love for me. You've got to count your blessings. You'll find one if you try. Count on the Lord and watch that blessing multiply. For those might haves and could haves and should have been are nothing but distressing. When you're down and out, it's time to count your blessings.
Okay, now, as the song said, and the song goes along with the Bible, and that Job lost his health, wealth, family, and all the rest. Yet, Job stayed faithful in that while he suffered, though he had some tough times, he stayed faithful to God. Now, that's something that everybody should listen to. There is something on the screen. There is something called Big Ideas in Job, and I found this on Google. So I found it to be quite interesting. So it'll probably be on this side of me, but I found it to be quite interesting. So I wanted to share it with y'all, and y'all probably already seen it during the song, but I wanted to show it to you. Y'all, there we go. Sorry, getting a little jumbled today. Alright, continuing. Now, one might raise the question, if Job was so good, then why would God let Satan torture him like that? Well, there's no real true answer that I know of that I can give you, aside from it's a test. If you can stay faithful through tough times like that, then you're a true believer in Christ. Well, bad things can happen to good people sometimes. And again, God's ways are beyond our comprehension, so we don't have the understanding to know why. Other than if you stay faithful, you're a true follower. So here's another verse that we can relate to. It's a few verses, actually. It's Philippians 4:4-7. Again, ESV for me. And the words will be up here. I think I have a picture for this one. So again, it'll probably be on this side. This time I've actually got this camera screen facing me so I can see what y'all are seeing. So I think it'll be on this side. So, neighbor again. Okay, so Philippians 4:4-7. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything. But in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Next page of my guide. I've got like 6 pages here. Burn down to like 2 pages. So, honestly, I think this is just a big deal. This point, that verse, and I just want to make it very clear. Job never cursed or never thanked God for it. Just praise Him. Alright? Moving on to the next point.
Alright. Let's see. There we go. Perfectly. And nice and more shaded than usual, but still a little bright, so forgive me if I'm holding my eyes about that wide open the entire time. The sun's been in my eyes most of the time, so forgive me. So I'm going to stand up over here for the last part of it because I want to stand up because my legs are tired from sitting down a lot. So my third point is probably going to be my longest point spelling out, but probably my shortest in bringing it to an end. So Job proclaimed God even when his friends tried to talk him out of it. So as the title implies, Job's friends were telling him that God has forsaken you. God doesn't deserve your praise. God caused you to be in all this pain and lose your children and lose all this and that and the other. But no matter what they said, Job continued to praise. That's all he did. That's amazing. Perhaps Job's reason for staying so faithful is that he understood that God gave him life, and God by any means did not have to. So Job knew it was just a form of God's steadfast love for him. Now here are some verses that may present a reason for Job staying faithful. Now, Romans 8:18 is one of these. Again, ESV, and I'll say it again, Romans 8:18. Alright, again, picking up in 18. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. Now, this verse presents us with the thought that Job was thinking, as my youth pastor says often, if I stay faithful, earth is as close to hell as I'm going to get. And you know what I mean by that word. But if I don't, then this is as close to heaven as I'm going to get. So, I have to make an option. Well, a choice. We have the options. We need to make the choice. So, that said, he knew, even though I'm suffering now, it's nothing like the glory that I will see in a very, very short time. Now, here's another verse. Psalm 34:19, ESV again. So, picking up Psalm 34, verse 19. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. Now, this verse is the one that I think hits home closest to what we're looking to answer. it suggests that followers of God, or the righteous, note to self, put an emoji with the quote marks there, will face many struggles and sorrows, but God promises to deliver you from them all. So relating to Job, he knew that believing in God was enabling him to a life full of sorrows. And as Christians and even Catholics do this too, because in my opinion, Christians and Catholics are very alike. So I might not be right on that, but in my opinion. So let me know what your opinion on that is in the comments. Trying to get comments going. Where am I? Enabling him to a life full of sorrow. So as Christians and even Catholics, as I was saying, when we choose to trust God instead of Buddha or doing the Hindu religion or even Greek gods, when we committed to Christianity and theism, I think that's right. Again, a lot of thinking going on today. We knew that we were going to end up with a life full of sorrow, but he knew, and we also need to know, that if we stay faithful through it, God will deliver him and he will deliver us. Now, there should be a picture. I might be sharing the screen with it in half, or it might be just somewhere bouncing around on the screen. And it's of Job by an altar with his hands like this, and then his friends are bowing. And this is after Job was healed, after Satan put him through the test and stuff. He stayed faithful through it, and so God delivered him from it. And he'll deliver us too, but instead of, maybe for some people, they're doing this, it's doing this, looking down on us, telling us, be faithful, and you will be where I am. That might be the case, or we might even be doing this. Alright? Okay, so to sum it up, Job had it all. Job loved God and turned from evil. Satan went to God, and God allowed Satan to test Job. Job lost everything. Job's health started failing. Job stayed faithful. God restored Job's health, wealth, and everything else. So I'm going to start doing a quote. So today's quote, and this one will be bouncing around the screen somewhere. If you truly love someone, being faithful is easy. And that's from lookupquotes.com, I think. I've got the black and white version. Y'all have got the color, so that's why I paused about the love, because I knew it said something in there, but I couldn't put my finger on it because I couldn't really read it. So if you truly love someone, being faithful is easy. So if we truly are followers of God, being faithful to him is just like that. Or if I decide to put an emoji in, like that. Just that easy. Okay? So thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button right here, or wherever it is on the screen. It should be right about here, but I don't know how tall I am on the screen. I'll see y'all next week. Leave me a comment telling me how you liked it, and again, subscribe. See ya.